Hey everybody, and welcome back to Everyday English Pod. Today we are going to take a look at something that really affects all of us. Social media.
Absolutely.
It's everywhere now, right?
It really is hard to imagine the world without it at this point.
So we are going to get into how it influences us in so many different ways, like how we talk to each other, how it affects our relationships, our mental well-being, and even the big picture stuff like public opinion. And how we become involved.
Yeah. Activism and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is based on, a bunch of different sources that we looked at that had a lot to say about both the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Both sides of social media.
It's a very complex topic for sure.
So to start things off, social media has definitely changed the way we communicate.
Yeah.
What did our sources have to say about this?
Well, one of the really interesting things is just how fast and easy it is now to talk to people. You can message someone across the world instantly or video call them. It's
amazing.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And it really has changed the way that we keep in touch with people, especially who are far away.
Yeah. It's so easy to just stay in touch. But is there a downside to all this?
There is. Some of the research we looked at suggested that this, ease and speed of communication that we've gotten so used to might actually be making our attention spans shorter.
Wow.
All these notifications all the time and expecting these quick replies, it could be training our brains to kind of jump around from one thing to another. And there's this trend toward these shorter, interactions, like emojis, memes, little short texts instead of those longer, more thoughtful conversations.
Yeah, we are definitely losing some of the nuance in how we communicate.
For sure.
But on the flip side, it's also given us new ways to express ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Our sources talked about how social media gives everybody this platform to share their lives, photos, videos, status updates.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful way to stay connected and just let people know what you're up to. But it also brings up this question, how often do misunderstandings happen?
Oh, yeah.
Just because you're missing the tone of voice or the facial expressions when you're just reading words on a screen?
That happens all the time.
Right. It's so easy to misinterpret things when you're just looking at text.
Yeah.
And, sometimes the anonymity that social media can give people can unfortunately make some people feel more comfortable being negative or even engaging in harmful behavior that they wouldn't do face to face.
Yeah.
So it's really important to think about how we're using these platforms responsibly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But, one of the good things I've noticed is that it can actually be a positive thing for people who are, more introverted or shy.
Yeah.
It gives them a way to communicate and express themselves without having that pressure of being face to face,
Yeah.
which can be really helpful for some people. And it can be a great tool for learning and networking too.
Like LinkedIn is a great example of that.
Yeah.
It makes it so much easier to connect with professionals all around the world.
And learn from their experiences.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've talked about communication. How about relationships? How is social media affecting the way we form and maintain connections?
Well, like we said before, it definitely makes it easier to stay in touch with people who are far away. But some of the sources we looked at raised some concerns about, the quality of those online relationships compared to the real life connections.
Are we just kind of replacing real connections with a bunch of online interactions?
Were we substituting those deeper relationships with something a little more superficial?
Yeah.
It's an important question to consider.
And there's also this pressure
that
I think social media creates to present this perfect version of yourself online.
The highlight reel. People are always sharing their best moments, the best photos. And it can give people a distorted view of reality.
Yeah. It's so easy to look at other people's seemingly perfect lives and start comparing yourself.
Feeling inadequate.
Yeah. And feeling like you're not good enough.
Social comparison is a big issue, and it can really mess with your self-esteem.
Yeah, it really can. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about mental health.
Okay.
What did our sources say about the impact of social media on our well-being?
Well, it's interesting because it kind of has this dual nature. On the one hand, it offers potential for connection and support.
Yeah.
Particularly through these online communities.
Oh, yeah.
And these mental health awareness accounts.
And there are so many groups now.
Right.
Where people can share their struggles and get support from each other. It can be really helpful.
It can be a lifeline for people who are feeling isolated. or alone in their challenges. But we also have to acknowledge the risks that come with social media.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The social comparison, the fear of missing out, that FOMO.
The FOMO?
And the addictive nature of these platforms.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to get sucked in.
The endless scrolling.
Yeah. And lose track of time.
And all those notifications are designed to keep us coming back for more.
Exactly. They want you to be engaged. But that can affect your sleep, your productivity, your overall mental well-being.
Yeah, if you're not careful.
It's about finding that balance.
But there were also, some positive things that our sources highlighted about mental health and social media.
Yes.
Right.
There's been this rise of mental health awareness accounts that are dedicated to mindfulness, self-care tips, advocacy, and it can be a real source of inspiration and guidance for people.
Yeah, a lot of people have found these communities online
where
they can connect with others who understand what they're going through.
Yeah, it's about finding your tribe.
But there are some things we need to be wary of too, right?
Absolutely. One thing that came up was the issue of misinformation.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes people share mental health advice online that isn't actually accurate or helpful.
Yeah.
And it could even be harmful. So it's so important to, rely on credible sources.
Yeah.
And if you need professional help, to reach out to a professional.
Yeah.
Don't just take everything you see online as gospel truth.
And then, of course, there's the issue of cyberbullying.
Oh, yeah.
Which, unfortunately,
it's a dark side.
Can be really damaging to people's mental health.
Especially for younger people.
Yeah. So what did our sources suggest for how we can kind of navigate these mental health challenges?
Well, a big theme was setting boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
So that means like limiting your screen time, unfollowing accounts that make you feel bad, and even taking breaks from social media altogether. Those social media detoxes.
Social media detox.
Yeah. And practicing mindfulness while you're using social media.
What does that mean?
So like being intentional about why you're logging on. What are you hoping to get out of it?
Oh, yeah. Just being aware of why you're there.
Right.
And they also talked about gratitude.
Right. Focusing on what you're thankful for.
Yeah.
Instead of comparing yourself to others can really help.
And maybe even curating your feed.
Yes.
So you're following accounts that make you feel good.
Fill your feed with things that inspire you.
Yeah.
Things that bring you joy.
Instead of things that make you feel bad.
Exactly.
And engaging more actively.
Yeah.
Instead of just passively scrolling.
Yeah.
Right.
Start conversations.
Yeah.
Share your own content. Use it as a tool for connection instead of just consumption.
Yeah. And of course, we can't forget about the importance of our real life relationships.
Absolutely. Nothing can replace face-to-face interaction.
Yeah. It's so important to prioritize those offline connections.
They keep you grounded.
Yeah.
And our sources also talked about the impact of filters.
Yeah.
And photo editing on creating these unrealistic beauty standards. It's so important to remember that. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
Everybody has flaws.
It's all about being kind to yourself.
Exactly. And stepping away when things start to feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
Your mental health should always come first.
Well said. Okay, so let's talk about how social media is shaping public opinion and activism.
This is a huge one. It really become a powerful tool for shaping what people think.
Yeah.
It gives individuals and groups a way to spread their message to a massive audience really quickly.
Yeah, it's really democratized information.
Yeah.
It's not just the traditional news outlets anymore.
Right.
Anybody can potentially reach millions of people.
Whether it's for social justice movements or political campaigns. Social media allows people to mobilize quickly, share their views, and potentially influence others.
But with that power comes a lot of responsibility.
That's right.
Right. And that's where we get into the problem of misinformation.
In fake news.
And fake news.
Yeah. It's become a huge issue because a lot of these platforms, their algorithms are designed to promote content that gets a lot of engagement, regardless of whether it's actually true.
So things can go viral, even if they're not true.
Exactly.
Just because they're sensational or emotionally charged.
And it makes it really hard to know what to believe.
Yeah. Our sources also talked about this idea of slacktivism.
Oh, yeah.
What is that all about?
So selectivism is when people show their support for a cause online, like by liking a post or sharing a hashtag, but they don't actually take any real world action. So while it might raise awareness, it doesn't necessarily lead to meaningful change.
Oh, so it's important to remember that real-world action is still necessary.
Yeah.
Things like attending rallies, contacting your representatives.
Those things make a difference.
Yeah. And then there's this idea of echo chambers.
Yeah.
Which is kind of scary.
It can be. It's when you mostly see information that confirms what you already believe.
Yeah.
Because you're following people who share your views.
Yeah.
And it can really prevent you from being exposed to different perspectives.
Yeah, it's like living in a bubble. So how do we break out of these echo chambers?
Our sources suggested that.
Yeah.
We need to actively seek out diverse opinions. Follow people who have different viewpoints than you, and engage in conversations with people who think differently.
Yeah.
It's all about challenging your own beliefs.
And, one thing that's really fascinating to me is how quickly public opinion can change on social media.
It's so fast. Something can go viral in hours, and trends can spread to millions of people instantly. It's both good and bad. It's good because it can raise awareness of important issues really quickly, but it also means that misinformation can spread just as easily.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. And then there's the whole world of social media influencers.
Oh, yes.
Right.
They've become really powerful in shaping people's opinions on everything from products to politics.
Yeah.
But it raises questions about authenticity and responsibility. Are they being genuine? Are they being transparent?
Yeah. Are they just trying to sell us something?
Exactly.
Okay. So let's look ahead a bit. What are some of the future trends in social media that our sources pointed to?
Well, one major trend is this increasing integration of AI, augmented reality, and virtual reality.
Wow.
These technologies have the potential to completely change how we interact online.
Yeah. It's pretty mind-blowing to think about.
It is.
We're already seeing AR filters and early versions of virtual workspaces. It feels like the lines between the real world and the virtual world are going to become even more blurred.
Yeah, it's exciting. But it also raises some concerns.
Like what?
About privacy.
Oh, yeah.
As we share more of our lives online, the potential for data breaches and misuse just keeps growing.
Yeah.
And with VR and AI, data collection could reach a whole new level.
It's a little scary.
Yeah.
And it seems like influencer culture is just going to keep growing.
It probably will. So it's important to think critically about the influence they have.
Yeah.
And to be aware of the potential for bias.
And we can't forget about the rise of video content.
Oh.
TikTok, YouTube.
Huge.
They're massive. It seems like everything is moving towards video.
It is. Short-form video especially is really taking over.
And live streaming is becoming more popular too.
Yeah, it gives people that sense of immediacy, that real-time interaction.
Yeah. But with all this, there's also the growing issue of digital addiction.
Yeah. It's something we really need to be aware of.
Yeah.
We have to learn how to set boundaries and balance our online lives with our offline lives.
It's about taking control instead of letting technology control us.
That's right.
And finally, our discussion touched on something that I think is really important, the environmental impact of social media.
Yeah, that's something we don't often think about. All those data centers, all that energy consumption, it adds up.
It does. So to wrap things up, what are some of the key takeaways about social media that we want to leave our listeners with?
Okay, so when it comes to communication, social media has made it faster and easier.
Right.
But we need to be mindful of how it's affecting our attention spans and the depth of our conversations.
And while it gives us new ways to express ourselves, we also have to be careful about potential misunderstandings because we're missing those nonverbal cues.
Right.
And with relationships, it's great for staying connected across distances, but we have to make sure that we're not letting online interactions replace real life ones.
And we need to be aware of that pressure to present a perfect version of ourselves online when it comes to mental health. Social media can offer connection and support, but it also comes with the risks of social comparison, FOMO, and addiction.
So setting boundaries and practicing mindfulness are key. And when we think about public opinion and activism, social media has given people a powerful voice, but we have to be wary of misinformation, fake news, slacktivism, and the echo chambers that can form online.
And as we move into the future, we need to be thinking about the impact of AI, AR, and VR, the growing concerns about privacy, the influence of influencer culture, and the dominance of video content.
And most importantly, we need to develop digital literacy skills so we can critically evaluate what we're seeing online. And we should also consider the environmental impact of our social media use.
So to sum it all up, social media is a powerful tool, but it's up to us to use it wisely.
I like that. So as a final thought, what do you want to leave our listeners with?
Well, I think it's important for all of us to really reflect on our own social media habits. How is it impacting our lives? Are we using it in a way that's beneficial, or is it causing us more harm than good? Social media is constantly changing, and so should our relationship with it. We need to decide what role we want it to play in our lives.
Great advice. Thanks for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time on Everyday English Pod.